Welcome, Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights. Episode is an interview of Bob Brill. This is actually the first part of it. Rich and I got Bob together on a Zoom call and kind of talked about kind of a ranging conversation. This is the first half of it. The other half I'll release later. But Bob's worn so many different hats. I go back with him 35 years-ish. And really been involved in a lot of interesting things, and you just need to hear it from him. So we go back and forth. Thanks sponsors, Topps, Panini, and Upper Deck, Heritage Auctions, Hugs and Scott Auctions, Mike Stadium Sports Cards, Burbank Sports Cards, ComC.com, and Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication. So thanks, Bob Brill, for your contributions, and Rich for drawing some of that out, and here it is.
Jim, a friend of mine sent me something, and he wanted me to verify that. Can you see that?
Looks like a baseball.
Yeah. Is that your signature, right?
It looks like it. It looks like a kind of older signature.
Yeah, it would have been done at Frank & Sons years ago.
Yeah, could be.
Okay. He says he thinks he got it down there, so he just wanted to verify it.
But the baseball players, they don't make a big deal about it. And golfers especially, it's hard to write your name on a round.
It is. Yeah.
And especially golf balls with the little dimples and all that stuff. But a baseball, you got to hold it in your hand and you've got to wrap your signature around it. And so, yeah, that looks like kind of what I would have done a long time ago.
Okay. That's what I thought. You know, he was pretty sure that he'd be one of the dealers down there. And I guess you only maybe went down there once or twice.
I went there a few times.
Hey, you're looking good, man.
I feel good. You too. You too.
Yeah.
But there is an option to try to retard aging. You're going to age a little bit, but just try to age a little bit slower.
Yeah.
Trying to take care of myself, but I don't
know.
We
both had our heart attacks.
Oh God, that's for sure. That's a wake up call.
Yeah, I had a little tiny one about 9 years ago.
Yeah,
and it was real briefly. Basically, I had double epidural on my back that morning, and which I never had before. I only had a single, and it was the first Pirate playoff game in like forever. And they lost, and I had to go to an acting class, and I was really depressed. And I got to the acting class, and I was sitting there, and also I just didn't feel comfortable. I did my bit that I was supposed to do and everything, and I was sitting there sweating and no pains in my arms or anything like that. Went down the hall, washed my face, drove home, told the wife, she goes, "It doesn't sound good. Maybe we should go to the hospital." I said, "Nah, I'm fine." I went out to the car and checked something out. I said, "Yeah, I'll call my doctor." And I said, "Is this a side effect of what you gave me?" She goes, "No, not really." And I said, "My elbow's starting to hurt." She goes, "Go to the emergency room." So I did. I drove myself to the emergency room, and just a little tiny damage to the back wall. But my cardiologist said, "I don't even want to write it up as a heart attack because you had no blockage or anything. But I have to. It's not going to help you on insurance, but that's the way life goes."
Yeah, with the insurance guys, one of my best buddies was my insurance guy, and he said, "I'm sorry, you're going to have this on your record the rest of your life. And it doesn't matter how good a shape you get in, you're going to be a heart attack guy at the end of time. And you're always going to be treated worse than a smoker." I think.
Yeah, I did want to mention that one of the most popular Beckett column I ever wrote lasted 2 years. It was called The Great Buy Sell Experiment. We started with $5, and the goal was to get to trade up to 10,000. And we did it in 104 weeks exactly.
You haven't really reinvented yourself as much as you've evolved over the years. Now,
right.
My recollection is I first met you when you had a radio.
I was at UPI Radio Network in LA because you flew out because we were doing the soap books. Remember, that had the team by team, some soap company.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, they did that for 2 years. I think those were the dial books.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And you came out because I had just gotten back into the hobby. And the funny part of it was, I told Rich, I said, I had 2 books and I didn't know who wrote them. And I started off our very first meeting, almost my first words was, "I was insulting you." And I didn't mean to.
That's how great friendships begin. I thought Random House had me there. Was that a different time? Because I thought
it was
in the 80s, late 80s.
For late 80s, because I started at UPI in 85, and I left in 93, and it would have been not long after I got there, which was late
87?
Oh, yeah, probably 87.
Yeah, that's my guess. Right. My parents lived in LA. Some of those are in the LA area.
I didn't know that.
But somebody paid for me to go there. I would have had the company doing the monthly magazines. So I would be really busy. We didn't have a huge team then. Yeah. I think Random House or somebody flew me out there and around the country. I had several other stops.
It probably was Random House because we had a really good Random House rep. I can't remember her name now. we did a lot of stuff with her clients. So that's probably what it was.
It wasn't very much fun for me to go and talk to, except you're the exception. But if I did 10 or 15 of them around the country, you're the only one that I still know or that cared about the category. I went to Detroit, and it was somebody that had no clue. I went to, I forget all the cities, but I went to a bunch of cities, and you'd come up to New York, and you'd go to these radio stations, and you'd be in the booth.
Yeah.
They personally interview you, and they basically looked at the cover of the book. Yeah. What's this about baseball cards? It'd be baseball cards 101, if that.
Yeah.
And then it's a 5-minute deal, and then you're on to the next one. And but you were the cream of the crop.
Well, we spent about a half hour, if I remember, and because we pre-taped it, and then I cut it up into a couple of short shows, which we did back then.
You were just a hobbyist kind of at those days,
yeah.
Right? But then you got really deep into it.
No, I had just gotten back into it because I
in the 90s. I thought in the 90s you got pretty deep into it.
Right. 89, I did my first show. And because I had, in 83, I had purchased like right around 100 rack packs of Donruss 83. It was actually 84. I bought some 83s. I just walked into a grocery store. They were in a shopping cart there, and they wanted like $1.99 a piece for them. And I told the manager, I said, how about if I buy them all and I'll give you 50 cents a piece? And he said, okay. And I put them in boxes. I just forgot about it. I figured that was one of those deals you're always looking to find. And over the years, I gave some away as birthday presents. And then I did my first show, and I sold the whole thing for $452 in Pasadena. And now that's when I was hooked, got back in.
All it takes is one profit sometimes.
And I got home, I made $1,000 at that show. And it was all, outside of that, it was all my own stuff. And my wife said, oh, this is great. You can do it again. The next show I did $18. I didn't even make table. And she said, why are you going to do it again? And I said, I don't know why I didn't do it. And then I realized my first show, everybody had taken all my good stuff. Yeah. It was all my stuff. I didn't have anything left.
When did you start the Brill?
Tony Loicono and Andy gave me the idea to do that. And I started that. So I was living in Sepulveda, been writing for SCD. I'll tell you, now I remember exactly. Because I went to Scoreboard, which was March of 95. And I had been doing it for a year and a half. So actually, it was probably late 92, early 93. Yeah.
Did you really enjoy that? I thought that was a sweet spot for you.
And I was the first guy in the hobby to do actual hard news. I didn't take advertising. I gave the daily stock reports on the public companies, which nobody had ever done. And I did features on the second page usually. And people were talking to me. I remember one article that I did that you didn't like, because I came back and I did the end tongue in cheek, and it didn't come off what you read as tongue in cheek. It was the one about how price guides work. And I left it as some idiot at the end saying, well, yeah, but how much are you paying for, or what are you buying this month or something? And because that's the way I started the article, and I finished it that way. And I remember you called me and said, I didn't like that because it left a bad taste in my mouth. I didn't mean it to come off that way. It was more sarcastic than anything. I still think I had the best grading system.
Yours was like extra complicated, I thought.
I thought it was pretty simple. You had a point for each corner, half a point for each side, point for the front, and 2 points for the front and 2 points for the back, whatever, it came out to 10 points. And I had it all on a card, which the collector got so they could actually see for themselves what the grades would have been. And it was a smaller holder. I designed the holder to be very much like the PSA holder, except for the fact it was smaller and fit in a 2-row shoebox. Okay. So you didn't have to buy a special box.
What years were you doing that?
Only that 1 year. To be honest with you, we got nothing. I didn't have any marketing money. So I got talked into doing the ad in the quarterly. We did a 2-page spread in the quarterly, and I got one response. And we figured if we got some responses, we'd reinvest that and buy, pages in the monthly and do that. But I never got any response. I didn't have any money at all. And that would have been close to store in 2009. So it would have been whatever convention that was in the 2000s. And then I did the card collecting video that basically Topps paid half for, and they didn't want me to give them credit. That was a brilliant idea, is the art of collecting. And the very first order I got, the very first one I got was you. You
meaning me?
Yeah, I got an order from you, and unfortunately, that was the only order I got.
That was the only order. Okay.
The order I got, yeah.
You know who else has that? I think Doug Cale had that same thing. I was an early adopter of all those things in those days. But Bob, you're a doer. You're out there seeing what would stick. The hobby needs more people out there doing things and not complaining about what other people are doing, but you're trying things and seeing what would work.
Tell us about your time working for Scoreboard.
That was interesting. I had the Brill report, and Mike Burkus called me up, and he said, would I be interested in coming to work for them? And I said, well, it depends. I'm going to make pretty good money this year with the Brill report, but I was also going to have to get to a point where I was going to hire somebody. That meant I had to get it out of my bedroom, and that meant I had extra expenses for an office, so I couldn't do both. So I think I was probably going to make $50,000 to $75,000 that year writing the Brill report. And so he said, you would have to sell your publication. And I said, yeah, that's not a problem. I would. And I tried to find a buyer. The first person I went to was you. And you looked it over and said it wasn't for you guys because it was controversial and that wasn't where you wanted to be. And so I went to SCD. We made a deal. Basically, they bought it for what I had because I had to do the deal in one day or two. And Burkus said, I'll offer you $75,000. And I said, okay, let's do that. I flew back to meet with Kenny and Mike, and we went through the whole thing. And Kenny wasn't thrilled about paying a PR guy $75,000 a year. It just wasn't his thing. And I told him, I said, well, I'm not coming for any less. Then I looked at him and I said, you have this horrible reputation. Why do you want me? Because my reputation is pretty good. And I think you even, Jim, questioned why I even went there. And a lot of people did. And I said, I had a family and that kind of stuff. And it was stable, at least I thought. They looked at me in the eye and said, we want to change our image. That's why we want to hire you. We hired Tom Guideman. They hired a couple other people. And I said, okay, probably within 4 months, I was trying to make changes and kept getting blocked at every point.
Well, you knew Burkus was big picture marketing and promotion guy. And Kenny, I think Kenny's dad, Paul, was a little more like me of being more scholarly, but right. Kenny is all about marketing and promotion too. And so I think some things, what happened is that Burkus and Kenny Golden both were able to outmarket these inefficiencies that you're pointing out, that they kept moving up market. And Kenny's doing great now,
right?
Because he's got other people doing these things and things. They've had their website crash, right? I don't know how many times, and that's a nuisance, but he's laughing all the way to the bank. And Burkus certainly did well. And he chose good people, Bob. But Mike knew that he'd have the big idea, and he had to have some people that were going to be able to carry things out.
I was there for 4 months, and I just moved my family there. And a week after that was when they fired me. So I stayed in Jersey consulting with small manufacturers for about a year and a half before we moved back to California, and then I opened my store. I still did a little consulting after that, but not much. I consulted with Finish Line. I consulted with Signature Rookies. I did some PR for them. Bill King and Art West and I became really good friends. I did some stuff with them, and like 5 or 6 different manufacturers. The experience at Scoreboard was a good experience and a bad experience. It was a good experience, and then it got me into the corporate world, and another good experience because it made me realize how much I hate the corporate world. And the things that I did there that I wanted to do, I was not able.
Bob, you've worn so many hats over 3.5 decades. What's been your favorite role? I really thought the Brill Report was a terrific fit for you. I thought you had some innovative grading things. Seemed like you enjoyed your store. Sounds like you didn't enjoy your stint with Scoreboard. But what's been your favorite thing? And what are you doing now that you're excited?
I love doing the store because we made the store what we called interactive. Instead of interactive with an I, it was E. Because we would do something every week. We'd have something going on. I did Pack Wars once a month, and we did it differently where you'd get tickets and we'd have a big showcase of stuff you could use to buy your tickets, including movie tickets, dinner for 2 at a local restaurant.